Understand the characteristics of a poor person, the middle class, and a wealthy person. So I'm Doug Andrew. I've been a financial strategist and retirement planning specialist now for 5 decades, helping people optimize assets, minimize tax, and empower what I call their authentic or true wealth. And by doing that, I've noticed a huge difference, and I teach this regarding those people who are constantly struggling in life. I call them strivers. A lot of the population refers to them as a poor person or poor people. And then the middle class, which are the arrivers, and then the difference between the wealthy people. So in this video, I'm going to dive into the difference between all of these and help you hopefully understand this difference. First of all, let me frame it this way. A lot of Americans are trapped down here in captivity, and they're following traditional financial planning advice. I would say at least 95% of Americans. And they're going to be lucky to have $100,000 net after tax when they hit their golden years. Or if they saved, they're going to be lucky to have $100,000, which because of inflation will only buy what $50,000 bought 5 years earlier, because they don't have a strategy where they can outpace inflation. Okay. Now, I contrast that with the top 5% of Americans that arrive at what I call the land of peace and abundance. They have tremendous freedom, and they amass $1 million, $5 million, $10 million that can generate money into perpetuity. If they live to be 120, they will not outlive their money. And it is immune from the negative impact of taxes, inflation, and market volatility. Okay. So the difference between these people and these are the wealthy, okay? And these are usually the poorer people or the strivers. These are the thrivers. Well, in the middle, we have this missing structure. These are the arrivers. And so I talk about the difference between these three in my book, The Laser Fund, and I'm going to gift you a free copy of this at the end of this episode, so stay with me here. And so in the book, I talk about there's an 8-step process I designed years ago that will very predictably take people from down here to up here. And that's why I call it the true wealth transformation. And so when we talk about this transformation, it begins with the enlightenment experience, understanding and getting it by studying or watching or listening and learning, okay? And once you get it, then you can go through a true wealth discovery of where you're at right now with all of your assets, and then a strategic design of repositioning assets in order to optimize them, increase the liquidity, safety, rate of return, and what have you. And you arrive at a success formula, and then you go through a refinement process. Blessed are the flexible, for they shall not be bent out of shape. You got to have flexibility. And then we have a final action blueprint. You go through an implementation and repositioning of assets. And then you have an annual meeting at a minimum for an accountability factor. This is a game changer, okay? So let me explain at a different viewpoint what the difference is between the strivers, arrivers, and thrivers, because there are basically 3 kinds of people in the world, and I explain this in the preface of my book. Strivers, they sort of spend money in the moment. They get a lump sum or whatever, and they spend it. They go, well, let's splurge on the birthday party tonight. Let's go do this. Let's go on a trip and visit Uncle Joe and what have you. And they don't have a vision for down the road. And a lot of these people, they make decisions only in the moment, and they make poor choices in life because they don't even have a vision of what is going to take place. What's the consequence of this choice, even a month down the road, okay? Arrivers live on less than what they earn. They're future focused. They save money because they envision a bigger future down the road. But thrivers, they always make their future bigger than their past, okay? Let's look at it another way, okay? Strivers, when they borrow money to consume. They spend it on depreciating assets in the moment at an RV or boat show. They borrow money to buy a car or an RV or an ATV or a jet ski. They don't think about anything else, and they give up all of the other savings to do that. They just can't save. We have arrivers who understand the 3 miracles of wealth accumulation. In a nutshell, the first miracle is compound interest. The second is tax-free accumulation or compounding. And third is safe positive leverage. Now, that's the ability to own and control assets with very little or none of your money tied up or at risk in that asset, okay? But leverage without liquidity is stupidity. The thrivers understand this, and it's not a one-off with them. They don't own one piece of rental property or one laser fund, my favorite vehicle. They own several. They repeat the process, and they borrow OPM, other people's money. They become their own banker in order to conserve. They borrow to conserve. So in a nutshell, strivers pay interest. The arrivers, they earn interest, but sometimes they quip, well, there's only two kinds of people in the world, those that pay interest and those who earn interest. And I go, no, there's a third kind of person. It's the mega wealthy thrivers. They learn when it's wise to pay interest in order to make more interest. And I'll explain that briefly here in just a moment. And so with everything that I do, basically, it's very hard to teach strivers who are set in their ways, who are not disciplined. They will always have too much month left at the end of their money and what have you. Our key market for our strategies are for the arrivers, thrivers, and even the survivors before they turn into divers. These are retired people who sometimes stop doing what they did to build their wealth and they hunker down. They just don't want to outlive their money. And I have to rescue them because they will outlive their money if they stop employing those strategies, okay? And so the way that money works is just like a bank. See, a bank or a credit union or an insurance company, they are institutions. They're not just benevolent, paying you interest. Why are they paying you interest? Okay, they don't put your money in a vault. They turn around and loan it back out again. So if a bank loans you money at 7.5% or 8% interest, and you put it into the bank for savings, they'll only pay you 3 or 4%. So they might pay you 3% interest on a CD. But if you borrow money from them, and they'll charge you 8. Well, how much more is 8 than 4? Don't say 4. It's 100% more. They're making 100% rates of return. It's even an infinite rate of return because they're not even making that on their money. They're making it on OPM, other people's money. And so savvy thrivers understand how to become their own bankers. So stay with me here because a lot of times when I talk to people, and I use the term out of debt. It's amazing how many people think that out of debt means, well, you don't owe anything. You don't have any liabilities. Well, yeah, that's okay, but that's not what mega wealthy thrivers do. I had an employee one time that when she worked at a bank, her biggest aha was all of these multimillionaires would come in and they would all have their real estate, including their own personal residence, mortgaged to the hilt. And she was thinking, they have all the money, they could easily have a free and clear home. And she would ask them, why don't you pay off your house? And they go, because it would cost me so much money. I'm paying a 4.5% tax deductible interest in a 33% bracket. That's 3. And I'm earning 9% over here in my laser fund. 9% is 300% more, 3 times more than 3%. I'm making 90 grand a year on every million, and I'm only paying 30,000 on $1 million mortgage on my real estate. Why would I give up a 300% rate of return? And most people hear that and they go, huh? What are you talking about? And so there's smart and quick ways to get out of debt, a 15-year mortgage or sending extra principal payments to the mortgage company or a biweekly payment plan. There's smarter and quicker ways, but the smartest and quickest way is not any way, shape, or form sending extra principal payments to the mortgage company. Mega wealthy thrivers understand this, okay? If you socked away that money that you're paying in a 15-year mortgage versus the payment you'd make on a 30-year, plus the tax savings you will achieve during the first 15 years of a 30-year mortgage, or any of that extra principal payment you're making, if you'd put that into a laser fund, compounding tax-free at 9%, let's say, and your mortgage is costing you a net of 3%, you'll have enough money in 2 or 3 years to totally pay off a 30-year mortgage 2.5 years faster than the same money to pay off a 15-year mortgage. And you'll use about $100,000 of Uncle Sam's money instead of your own money to do it. See, so I define out of debt as when I have enough money in my right-hand pocket, my assets, that any time with an electronic funds transfer phone call, I can transfer that and pay off all the liabilities over here in my left-hand pocket. I am out of debt on my balance sheet. So it all depends on how you view that, see? Because a lot of times people don't understand the difference between preferred and non-preferred interest expense. If we have two couples or two individuals and they make $72,000 a year, and one has $12,000 of credit card debt, they can't deduct it. They have $60,000 left after paying the interest, but they have to pay taxes on a full $72,000, even though they only had $60,000 left over after paying the interest. This couple, they pay $12,000 of interest that's deductible in a 33% bracket, and they get to write off that $12,000, which saves them $4,000. So they have $4,000 of difference here, and so they enjoy preferred interest because they understand how money works. So when we talk about this, the mega wealthy thrivers borrow to conserve, not to consume. So they understand that if you own, let's say, some real estate, that if you leave all of your money tied up in a property, okay, well, you're giving up the opportunity to earn a rate of return on that. And you may say, well, the real estate's going to appreciate. Well, the real estate's going to appreciate regardless of whether it's full of cash or empty of cash, mortgages to the hilt or free and clear. It's going to do that regardless. But see, if you separate that, you now give that money and the ability to earn a rate of return. And so you incur an employment cost. This is maybe mortgage interest. But if it's preferred interest, is this starting to make sense? And so just like you would pay an employee $30,000, if that employee made you an extra $90,000, I'm willing on a $1 million mortgage to pay $30,000 a year in interest because that million in my laser fund is making me 3 times what it's costing me. It's making me $90,000. And that's the first year before it starts to compound and be better. And so you're going to incur one of these costs or another, but if you have no choice, which one would you rather incur? Non-deductible, opportunity costs are fully deductible employment costs. I'd rather incur that one. And mega wealthy thrivers understand this. And so when I say, what do you get when you multiply one negative by another negative? Well, you get a huge positive. What am I talking about? So many people view paying interest as a negative. Mega wealthy people, they view paying interest as a means to create more wealth. And so they pay interest, like I'm talking about, at a lower rate. And then what do? They put that money over into max funded insurance contracts. Now, most Americans view insurance as a negative, a necessary evil. No, if you structure insurance to accumulate your money tax-free, earning a rate of return of 9, 10, or 11% like I have since 1980, all of a sudden you're making 300 to 400% more than the cost, and you will become mega wealthy. I prove it, okay? And so let me give you a quick example. Savvy clients of mine, this gentleman is a real estate investor where he buys like strip malls, fixes them up and flips them. He doesn't like to be the landlord. And he has a pool of investors on both sides, the ones who are selling and the ones who are buying. And so in 2017, he had in his IUL policy money that he could borrow or withdraw. Well, he called me up and said, Doug, I need $1 million to tie up a piece of property with an earnest money. Send me that form over. It's a 1-page form. He puts his name and his policy number, which is like an account number. And it says, do you want to withdraw $1 million? No. Would you like to borrow $1 million? And he goes, yes. Well, do you want to borrow at a zero cost? He could have done that. That means he borrows and the insurance company loans him $1 million and they charge him 2%, but they credit him 2% on the $1 million that he left there as collateral. That's called a zero cost or zero wash loan. That's not what he checked. He checked the one that I do. I want an alternate loan. Well, that means that they will charge him 4 or 5%. Let's say 5%. So why would he borrow from the insurance company at 5% interest? That's a pretty good rate, by the way. But why would he borrow if he has $1 million in there? Here's why, because he's smart. He borrowed and they charged him 5%. That year on the $1 million that he left there as collateral, he earned 25% in his IUL policy. 25% on that $1 million, he made $250,000 tax-free on his $1 million while he was using it to make $2 or $3 million buying and fixing up and flipping this strip mall. Minus the $50,000, he netted 20% or $200,000 tax-free on his million while he was using his million in his business. This is how smart thrivers operate, okay? And so it's really the difference between what I call challenging mindsets and ideal mindsets. So in the very front of my book, I actually tell the reader, if this is you over here, stop reading. This book is not for you. If this describes you or where you want to go, you're on board, then you will enjoy this book. Otherwise, this book is going to drive you crazy. And so instead of being scarcity minded, be abundant minded. Instead of lacking the desire to learn or change, you're motivated to learn and change. Instead of being unteachable, be teachable. Instead of following the crowd, okay, be independent as a thinker. Instead of being wishy-washy, you can't make decisions, you're decisive in nature. Instead of blaming and justifying, you're being responsible and accountable. And instead of being a financial jellyfish, you're being financially disciplined. And if you are discourteous and disrespectful, this book is not for you because you need to be courteous and respectful instead of thinking, oh, the world owes me a living and I want my money's worth and so forth. See, I tell people, if this is your mentality, you're not going to enjoy the strategies in this book. Otherwise, you will love this and watch your abundance compound. So if you would like to claim your free copy of this Laser Fund book, simply click on the link below or go to laserfund.com. You contribute a nominal amount towards the shipping and handling. I'll cover the rest of that. And I'll pay for the book. I'll fire out a hard copy to you via priority mail. And while you're in there claiming your copy, if you like to listen and learn or watch and learn, there's those options. There's free educational webinars we teach on a regular basis. If you want to talk to an IUL specialist at no cost or obligation, you can schedule an appointment. But this is about you and your brighter future. So start by claiming your free copy of the Laser Fund book, and then I'll see you on the other side of your brighter future.